Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Ask the Trans Attracted Man number 7. This is the seventh video, actually the eighth video in my series of discussions about being a trans attracted man. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Miss Diamond Styles. And this is kind of to piggyback on a video that she just recently did about the infamous Mr. Cee and his alleged quote unquote coming out or being outed or what have you. I have a lot of interesting takes on this. First, I'm going to discuss Mr. Cee, and then I'm going to get into what it means about being a trans attracted man, one, and the differences that I think that Mr. Cee has shown versus what a trans attracted man is all about. Now, let's go by the history. And my source is the New York Daily News. Back in October 8th and November 20th of 2010, he was arrested both times. And as they claim in the New York Daily News, that he was arrested for having sex publicly with men. Not trans women, but men. On April 4th, 2011, they named a male companion that he was caught with at 3:35 in the morning, that one or the other was giving each other oral sex. Again, this was a male companion. They did not say trans woman, or as the media is famous for doing, misgendering a trans person and bringing up their male name during that particular article or interview. And then finally, in May 2013, he was arrested for trying to pick up a male prostitute who was an undercover cop. So he was not a woman or a trans woman. So when Mr. Cee has come out and when they have discussions about this whole Mr. Cee debacle, they are quick to say that he's into trans women and that he's a trans attracted man or what have you. If anything, in my humble opinion, Mr. Cee is more or less bisexual. Now, I've heard some alleged rumors that Mr. Cee may or may not have had liaisons with trans women, and that's all fine and dandy. That just means he pretty much goes for anything. It's difficult to be a trans attracted man in these stating times. This was something that I struggled with myself for a number of years. This wasn't something that was easy for me to come to grips with. It took me a number of years to finally be able to look in the mirror, look at myself, and be okay with it. But I take a little bit of issue with this whole Mr. Cee thing and him suddenly being the poster boy for being what a trans attracted man is. Now, I've had some discussions with people close to me, with my lady and some of my trans women friends, and they seem to think, well, especially this last one with this blogger or whatever, she, quote unquote, is, but it appeared to be just a man in a wig. Now, I'm not trying to disparage or be rude about that particular individual, but looking at what the news has picked up, looking at how he was caught with men. Men are not trans women. There is a huge difference between the two. A trans woman lives and identifies as a woman. It's not something that they take on and take off at the end of the day. It's like, okay, I'm going to be a woman today, but tomorrow I'm going to be Steve. That's a cross-dresser. and or a drag queen that performs at night and goes to work as Phil during the day. That's not a trans woman. Again, I'm not disparaging anyone's gender identity nor their sexuality. I'm just pointing out differences that are there. So when Mr. C is put on this pinnacle or made to seem that he is a trans attracted man, I don't quite buy it. If anything, he's bisexual at a minimum, or he is gay. There's a difference. Again, a trans woman identifies as a woman. That is her gender identity. That is not something that she takes on and takes off. Whereas if you're getting caught with male prostitutes, you are soliciting undercover male cops. Those are trans women. So there is a big difference in the two. So that within itself, and for him to make an attempt to downplay it by saying, oh, okay, I'm interested in trans women or gender non-conforming persons, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak, on the articles that I did quote from the New York Times. I'm sorry, the New York Daily News. Let me get that source correct. That's why it's kind of sticking in my craw. Now, again, you can be gay, you can be straight, you can be whatever. That's entirely up to you. But when you start to define something and you're wrong about it, you're flat out wrong. That's why I'm taking a little bit of umbrage towards it. Now, as far as him being outed, as far as this last incident with the blogger who recorded their little liaison or the little negotiating that he was attempting to do, I think that was just cold, and this was that person's way of trying to get their 5 minutes of fame. But outing someone is always wrong, and a person should do that on their own time. As far as being a man, on the down low, being someone who's not comfortable with his sexuality, that's a totally different set of circumstances. Now, again, I've been there and done that. I've been dating trans women for a long time, but only the last 15 or so years have I been comfortable enough to live my truth. That's why I'm doing this video series. That's why I'm as outspoken as I am, because I don't want anyone else to define who I am and who a number of men who I've interviewed and talked to, who they are. But when you have the media and they are trying to set the ideal of what a trans attracted man is, it's not sitting with me well. So again, you can look up the New York Daily News and read those articles. Those articles say something entirely different than what he's trying to put out. Now, as far as men being on the DL, especially with trans women in particular, I blame a lot of that on trans women themselves. If a man is ashamed of being with you, if a man only wants to see you when the sun goes down or after midnight, you're nothing but a booty call. And if you allow it, then you are part of the problem. Is it easy to come to terms with the way society is and the way that we are socially conditioned to believe what is gender and what is sexuality? No, it's not an easy task. It's not easy at all. I fought with it for a number of years before I really got tired of fighting. But again, it's a two-sided coin where the men themselves are part of the issue, but the ladies allow it, so they are part of the issue as well. I want to continue to have these open discussions to change the dynamic, to change the paradigm on what is gender, what is sexuality. At the end of the day, I'm a grown man. Nothing that I do I'm ashamed of. If I was ashamed, then I wouldn't have my face and my voice out here on the public airwaves, allowing people to critique or criticize or comment on who I am and what I'm about. That's what a man does. A man lives up to who he is and what he's about. You know, I hope Mr. C can come to terms and come to grips with who he is and what he wants. And there should be no need for him to feel shamed or feel like less of a man in any way, shape, or form. When all of this truth came out with me, my biggest fear is that my friends and family would treat me some kind of way that if my colleagues and co-workers found out, that they would treat me differently and or look at me with disdain or treat me with disrespect. That never happened. I didn't lose a friend. I didn't lose any family members. I haven't been ostracized in any way, shape, or form. But the key is that I'm living my truth. And I did have an incident when I was dating a young lady and we didn't work out, and she decided, she was trans, and she decided that she was going to help me and tell my business, and she actually called my job. She spoke to the secretary, and the secretary knew who she was. And she kind of chuckled and laughed and said, "Wow, so you're telling me that, wow, Troy dates trans women. But we already know you're trans and you're wasting your time. Don't call here anymore. Click." All we did was get a laugh about it. There wasn't anything malicious, or my coworkers didn't treat me all funny. It was just like, guess what happened? You know, she called up here talking stuff. Ha 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 ha. You shouldn't have messed with her crazy, but anyway. So again, it's time for men to stand up. This is 2013. You know, when are we going to embrace who we are? When are we going to stand up and fight for the women that we're with? There's a lot of guys out there who are trans attracted. There are athletes. There are TV stars, movie stars. There are millionaires. There are so many different men from so many different walks of life. Cops, judges, clergy, everyone. But it's a secret. They want to keep it in the dark. They want to act like that this is something that doesn't happen. I think the biggest issue is really Western religion and Western society. Western religion has demonized trans people. Trans people have existed since time immemorial. They were revered as spiritual beings, as being closer to God. But Western religion has demonized them, has forced them to the shadows, and Western society has shunned them. That's why trans women need to fight for their rights, and the people who love them, their friends, their family, the men who are with them, the women who are with them, need to stand up and fight. I never thought that this would be a social issue for me. I never thought that it would be even a civil rights issue, or I didn't consider it a civil rights issue. But it is. And things need to change, and they need to change right away. The only way that they're going to do is for men to stand up. It's for people who love these trans women, these trans people, to stand up, to stand beside them, to stand in front of them, to fight with them. If we don't, we're going to lose a lot of people. That's why there are a lot of suicides. That's why there are a lot of just death, men beating trans women to death. Why? Because they feel a certain kind of way. I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks.